listening to Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma, and I'm your host, Trish Close. Today's episode sponsored by Tap and Vine 559, the place to eat, meet, and drink in Southern Oregon. Kylie Mazon-Chambers on the podcast today. She's a writer, cook, photographer, and the brilliant woman behind Cooking with Cocktail Rings. That's how you can find her on social media, also the name of her website. She talks about growing up in New Jersey with a mom who didn't really like to cook. She said food was really important, though, to the family, and Kylie discovered she did like to cook and really enjoyed being in the kitchen. That's not what she set out to do, though. She moved to Southern California to go to school and get into the fashion industry. That didn't work out. She'll explain why. She says it wasn't until mom asked for Kylie's recipes to write them down for her that the light bulb went off. She started a food blog where she started to compile all of these recipes. And she says the growth was really small at first. In a sea of food blogs where there's a bazillion food bloggers out there, how was she going to stand out? She said that's always been a theme for her, comparing herself to others, trying not to compare herself to others. She said when she really hunkered down and focused on what Kylie wanted to do, everything took off. Here's Kylie Mazon-Chambers. Do people ever see you and go, oh my gosh, it's Cooking with Cocktail Rings?
A handful of times it's happened, and every time, it's still I think about it all the time because it's really cool.
That's super
people,
cool.
Have actually recognized me. It's wild. I think that's a very cool thing with social media.
Social media is nuts. Kylie Mazon-Chambers, writer, cook, photographer. Also, I guess we could call you a food blogger. You're known on Instagram as Cooking with Cocktail Rings. That's how a lot of people know you and follow you. We're going to talk about the whole cocktail rings thing. You're joining us from Brooklyn today.
I am, Williamsburg.
Wow. Okay. So I read that you are from, where are you from originally?
I'm from New Jersey. And then I moved to LA for about 10 years and had gone to college out there and was living there for a while. And then during the pandemic, my husband and I ended up moving to New York.
Oh, wow. So you went to Southern California for school?
Yes.
Okay.
I did. I went to Pepperdine University, and that's
Nice.
where I met my husband. I had moved back to the East Coast for a year of frigid winter and was working in PR, and I did not enjoy it. I was doing fashion PR and it just wasn't for me. And so I actually was writing down my recipes for my mom when I was moving back to LA. And that's kind of where Cooking with Cocktail Rings was born. I was compiling my recipes because my mom doesn't really cook. Mm-hmm. And so I've always been the cook of the family. And so I just was sharing those with her. And then as I was applying to other jobs, I kind of started sharing my recipes, and it just turned into my career.
I love that your mom is like, can you write down your recipes for me? It's usually the other way around.
Totally. And I will say, she's an incredible baker. She makes incredible cakes and cookies and all of that. And so I do take her recipes from that. But the cooking side of things is me.
That's brilliant. So let's talk about, you grew up in New Jersey?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't really have an accent.
A lot of people say that. I'm from northern New Jersey. I feel like there's not as much of an accent associated with it.
I think it was the decade in
other
SoCal.
Areas.
I think it was the decade in SoCal. It ridded you. It was like, gone. What was that like growing up in New Jersey? I'll let you sorry, go ahead.
A lot of people, especially when I went to college, it was around the Jersey Shore era. So people were like, why don't you have an accent? And, is it really like that? I loved it. I grew up in a really more suburban area, lots of farms. It's called the Garden State for a reason. There's incredible produce. And so I had a much different experience, I feel like, than a lot of people expect when you say New Jersey.
Probably, yes. Did you grow up around food? Was food important in your house?
Yes. Food has always been something that's brought people together. At my house, I have my parents and then a brother. But any given night on dinner, it could be just the four of us, or it could be 10 people. You kind of never really knew. My mom had a really open door policy where our friends could come, and just it was kind of a haven for everyone. And we just loved spending time together and loved entertaining and loved cooking for people. So I got really good at scaling recipes up or just making them for us. And so it was really, really nice.
Yeah, no kidding. Mom sounds awesome. Yeah, I read that your mom, you sort of became the cook because mom did not like to cook.
Yeah. Yeah. She's a baker. But my dad and I actually cooked together a lot.
Yeah.
And so that was always our fun thing. And now my brother is incredible at grilling and smoking meats and doing that kind of stuff. And so he's become a really great cook. But at the time, he didn't really cook.
I feel like dinner in your house right now, like current sitch, like dinner at your house is fantastic.
I
When the
mean,
family gets
I don't
together.
want to brag.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we were just all together for Thanksgiving, and it was actually my husband's family and my family, and we were down in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We went to the Iron Bowl game, the
Mhm.
football game, and we did a big Thanksgiving, and it was great.
Oh
I'm not gonna
man.
lie.
Yeah, no. I come from a big family of cooks. I mean, they're all just really good in the kitchen. And I just, oh man, there's nothing like, because everybody has kind of their area, right? Of
Everyone has their thing,
Mhm.
yeah.
What they're good
And
at.
especially with a family, you just kind of like you fall into the rhythm.
Absolutely. Okay. So I also read Uncle. Uncle is a chef.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. My uncle's a chef, and so I learned a lot of techniques from him. So that was really helpful. One of the first things I ever learned to cook was actually creme brulee.
No way.
Yeah.
Creme brulee is
So he
crazy
taught me
hard.
that very early on.
Yeah. And when you were cooking at a young age for the family, you're cooking for the family.
Mhm.
Wow, that's crazy.
Well, I mean, like everyone would still help. I just
Sure.
kind of would direct things, and yeah.
I can just like I kind of picture 8-year-old Kylie just like set the table, stir this, like kind of yeah.
I'd say it's kind of started maybe like right before high school because actually early on in my childhood, I was the pickiest eater.
Mm-hmm.
I ate like bland white foods, like white rice, pasta with butter and Parmesan cheese. My mom had to carry around like little ranch packets for me to eat things with.
You were the ranch girl.
I was the ranch girl. And
Yeah.
so my family laughs because I mean, now I will eat absolutely anything, try anything once. And so I've come a long way.
What do you think? Where do you think that switched though? Like what do you think happened?
It's actually so strange. I got my tonsils out and I got my tonsils out and I started craving like different foods. I was became like anemic and so then I started craving meats more and then just would start to try everything. Also, I'm very competitive and my brother has always been my younger brother too. So he has always been down to try anything, eat anything. He was like this like little kid who would order twin lobsters when we go to Martha's Vineyard and just take them down and everyone would be staring at him. So we're competitive. So he was eating it. I was like, okay, well, I should try this too.
Fantastic. I mean, you could say the tonsils coming out really that's like a turning point for you.
It's like so strange.
That is
But
strange.
yeah, it made me start craving different things.
Okay. So here you are cooking stuff, but you don't necessarily want to do this as a career. You don't want to be a chef. You don't want to go to cooking school.
No, I don't want to be a chef. A lot of people ask, like, am I going to open a restaurant? And that's not me. That's not
Mhm.
the hours that I want. I love that as a food blogger and recipe creator, I'm so flexible. I love working from home. My coworkers are my dog and my cat,
Perfect.
and I have a flexible schedule, so it's nice.
And not that I'm a home cook. By no means I would ever consider myself like chef status. And I have a few people who joke. They're like, you should open like a food truck or you should open a restaurant. I just feel like that would kill the passion,
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I've been very fortunate to have some incredible mentors along the way. I've worked with chefs, and so they definitely have a big impact on
Hmm.
my skills and things like that. But in terms of the time and like the hours,
Yeah.
I it's not for me. I
No way.
like the flexibility of being able to be inspired, write a recipe, test it and work on it and then share it with people. And then I also like the photography side of things.
Yes, you're very
And
good at it
so
too.
thank you.
I
Being
do
able to do everything is fun.
yeah, the control. I have control issues, so
Yes, I think you've got that. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that.
I do find chefs though, they're I'm a little googly eyed around chefs. I am. I feel like
Of
they
course.
are total celebrity status for me, just because food is a huge passion, and they're so nonchalant about stuff. Like they take a whole fish and slap it around and take the guts out and throw it in a pan, and we're like, oh, we'll figure that out later. And it's just so impressive. So I think
Absolutely.
chefs are very much, I hold them pretty high.
Yes, I would agree. And while I'm not classically trained, I do try to do the research and, practice to be able to do certain skills like
Hmm.
that. And
Hmm.
again, I cite my uncle as a huge inspiration. Um, and then also just in terms of how cutthroat the restaurant industry is to be a chef and grind like that
Yeah.
and have a successful restaurant, I think is impressive, especially like around places like New York where the turnover is crazy.
Yeah. And you're saturated. I mean,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so then let's back up a little bit. You're not really wanting to go to cooking school necessarily, but you travel across the country to go to school. What's on the brain? Like, what are you thinking? What do you want to be when you grow up?
At that time, I
Hmm.
wanted to work in fashion.
Okay.
And then it turned out to be a little more Devil Wears Prada than I was expecting. And I lost, it's the kind of thing that you were saying, like being, if you were to be a chef, then you
Hmm.
think that you would lose the passion. I lost the passion. It was not for me. And so I explored different career paths and happened to find on my next try something that I absolutely love and still almost, I guess I started my blog probably 7 years ago
Okay.
now, and I have maybe I think more passion for it now than ever.
So you said it was when your mom really kind of asked for your recipes, like to write some of
Hmm.
them down for her. And that's
Yeah, so
really
I
where,
started compiling them,
yeah.
and then my I had a mentor at the time who taught me how to really properly write recipes. She was the head recipe writer and head of the test kitchen for Viking cookware in their culinary school.
Hmm.
And so she taught me a lot, and then she put me in touch with another chef, Anne Willen, who she had a culinary school in France, and then lived half the year as she had gotten older, lived half the year in Santa Monica, and so it just kind of it worked out. Where then I was able to work with her and kind of work on proper recipe structure. And my now husband had encouraged me to start sharing my recipes with people, and it just morphed into cooking with cocktail rings.
You had some killer mentors. Wow.
Yes, like I said, I've been very lucky, and so much of that comes down to networking.
Hmm. For sure. So recipe writing, because I don't know if you feel this at all. You're probably much better at it now than you were maybe a few years
Oh
ago.
God,
But
yes.
I don't I like my kiddos like, hey, can you write down some of these recipes that, and I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. Like I don't know a handful. I have no idea how much of this and that I put in. What did you learn from recipe writing specifically?
A lot of it is developing like a consistent style. And again, measurements key. That is huge. And it's funny because like a lot of chefs actually have trouble writing down their recipes because first of all, you're working at such higher volume in
Hmm.
kitchens. So I remember like asking my uncle for recipes and he'd be like, like a little this, like you do this, and you're like, okay, this doesn't really write
Right.
it down. And I think it's funny. So the chef thing is very different. I know that they struggle with actually writing down recipes.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I think a lot of consistent making sure your style for that is consistent and your measurements are right.
Do you, in your research, do you write down those measurements? Like you make it one time and then you kind of write down and then you go back and you tweak things, obviously.
So mainly like what I do at least now is I'll write a rough draft of a recipe if I have an idea in my head. Sometimes when I'm cooking, I'll just kind of experiment and come up with something and be like, oh yeah, I should write that down. But a lot of times now with what I do, I have an idea in my head because I know all the techniques and baseline of things. I have a framework to start with a
Hmm.
lot of the time. And then I'll test that and see how that goes based off of those kind of random measurements that I've scribbled down and test that and then work from there. And then and tweak and retest from that.
So you're writing down these recipes for your mom. I mean, I guess where was that aha moment where you're like, I should start a blog? And then what came first? Like, did the website come first and then Instagram? Like, what happened first?
Well, at first I thought I'm going to write a cookbook, but it's just not a thing anymore to just, go out and write a cookbook. That's not how things work. You really need to build a following.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I had written everything down, compiled that, and I think I started the Instagram first, just sharing a couple photos, and then very, very soon after started the website.
Okay. Was it because you were hearing were you getting really good feedback from maybe friends or family?
People kept asking for the recipes, and so I had started to share them, and my husband Aaron had said, I think there's something here. You should make a website and start doing that, and I did.
Go hubby. What a sweet guy.
Yeah,
That's
he's
amazing.
very encouraging.
Yeah, sounds like it. So I guess I'm super curious. You start putting the stuff on social media. Does it just explode? Is it organic? Does it grow slowly?
I'd say it grew slowly. I think a lot of people don't understand. They want the stardom overnight kind of thing to happen, and I mean that does happen with a lot of people on social media. It is absolutely a thing. For me, it was more of a being consistent and making sure that I consistently posted and shared and developed kind of an interaction with my audience. That over time it grew.
Walk me through your process as far as when you're posting. Do you have a calendar? Are you pre-planning things, or is it something that just pops in your
I
head?
try.
Yeah.
But sometimes it depends on the day or the week. Some weeks I am planned out. Some months I, have my content calendar ready to go and am really on top of it. Other months, not so much. And it kind of creeps up on you.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more off the cuff work.
Is it daily? Do you post every single day?
No, I try to post like 4 to 5 times a week, but it's so hard. It's so hard to keep up with that level of content creation and keep it at the quality that I want. Luckily now, it's also hard because then, so like I try to post like two new recipes a week on my website. And then I will hopefully have videos or photos that I can post on Instagram and TikTok. And then on top of those, I'll kind of film videos off older recipes or like little tips and things like that I can post as reels and TikToks as well.
Yeah.
So it depends on the platform for how much I'm posting.
Gotcha. I also feel like, especially for food bloggers like yourself, I'm just like, where you guys are this never ending hole of ideas. Like it's very impressive. And I know the holidays are a little easier, right? Because you can there's a theme to it, but next March, I mean, do you ever hit like a dry spell where you're like, what the hell am I going to do?
Yeah, so I always keep a Word doc and a note on my phone of different ideas, a running list of flavor combinations, of ingredient combinations, of different dishes that I might have had that I can kind of put a twist on or recreate something like that. Travel is a huge inspiration for me. But definitely it's good to have those ideas written down, because if I'm at a loss, then I can consult that and try and spark something.
No kidding. I mean, I was on your website and I hit the travel section, and all over the place. You have been all over the place. And then I'm like, does this girl stop working? Like, do you just go on vacation and not document it? I mean, it's a lot.
Not document it? No, I don't do that, but I do enjoy vacations and do enjoy that. And because, the nice part of my job is that I can have more of a work-life balance and am flexible, but at the same time, because you are the one who's deciding your own hours, it can be difficult to turn off.
For sure. So where have you been in the last, I don't know, few years that really just inspired you food wise?
Well, COVID definitely put a wrench in things in terms of travel. But before that, we had gone to Thailand, and that's definitely been a huge inspiration for me. And then more recently, we were in France and for a wedding, and just incredible food in Paris.
I've heard. I've never been. I've heard it's just absolutely amazing. Like there's nothing like it.
I mean, there's a reason why, French cuisine is popular. And of course, you can't go wrong with really good cheese and bread.
Dude, seriously. Did you come back like recreating anything?
Yeah, I had just an incredible, just very simple ham and cheese sandwich that I made. I will say I'm pregnant, and so it was difficult to not eat like all of the stinky cheeses that are unpasteurized there and the wine. So I did miss out on that this trip.
You go back. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
That's awesome. So how has that played a role in food blogging? Has it?
Yeah. My first trimester was really hard because nothing sounded good. Usually I still eat all the food that I'm making. A lot of people ask like, what do you do with all of the food? And some I give away to friends and neighbors, and I get their input on things. So it's a very good trade-off. And then other things I will reheat for dinner and then kind of try to recreate into different meals so that nothing goes to waste, because I don't like food waste. And I do think that is a big issue. So I try to remake and repurpose as much as I can. But in my first trimester, all I wanted was pasta, cereal, and bagels.
Nice. You were reverting back to the ranch days, the young.
I know, yeah, right.
Kylie day. You're like, I need ranch.
Yeah. So everything, I feel like, okay, you have to eat this because I can't even look at it.
Oh man, I can't imagine. That would be really hard, because when you're not feeling something, I don't want to smell it.
It was hard because I just didn't feel like myself, because so much of my life revolves around food.
Yeah.
So that was tough. But things are good now.
I was going to ask, things are better now.
Yeah.
Fantastic. When are you due?
February 19th.
Yay! That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Coming quickly.
Oh, it'll be here before you know it. That little human will be here. I'm trying to
prep. Yeah, I'm trying to prep as much as I can to be able to take maternity leave and slow down. So I'm trying to bank content so that I can still be kind of posting some things. And right now that's difficult, just because of the holidays. There's such a push for so much content for holidays that I don't feel like at this time I can really get ahead. So January is when I plan to really do that, and we'll see how it goes.
That's an interesting topic. I want to ask you about that. First, a quick message from today's sponsor. We'll be right back. Welcome to Tap and Vine 559. The place for that drink after work. Choose from a long list of local wine, craft beers, and ciders on tap. The place for lunch or dinner. Shareable bites, fresh salads and bowls, and mouth-watering sandwiches and entrees. Come with a friend, the family, or book Tap and Vine for your next party or event. More information at tapandvine559.com. Tap and Vine 559, the place to eat, meet, and drink in Southern Oregon. So you said banking content. I mean, shooting like crazy, like shooting just little things like crazy and then saving them.
Yeah. Really trying to get ahead and then be able to, I'll probably slow down to posting one new recipe a week rather than two. But again, it in a social media world moves really fast. So you still want to stay relevant and kind of with it. But at the same time, like, I have to take a maternity leave.
Absolutely. No kidding. And I think your followers will understand that, right? That, hey, she's a new mom. Like, everybody calm down. You don't need a new recipe this week. Chill out.
Right. And it's not as much of the followers. It's a lot of more of like the algorithms for things, staying relevant in search results, having your video still come up and be fed to people. So it's not as much an angry mob as it is a self-imposed thing of wanting to stay relevant.
Oh, I feel this. I feel the self-imposed. growing followers. And for me, I'm not a food blogger, but I am a podcaster. And so
Absolutely.
when you want people to sponsor your podcast, they look at how many people are listening to it, and how many people are listening to it is based on how many people are following you. It is a vicious, nasty little cycle. And I'm glad you mentioned the word algorithm. Like I mentioned before we started the interview, I just chatted with a food blogger. I had no idea that it's a word count, right? You have to have a certain amount of words in the blog.
Yes. Yes. That's something that I learned later on because for so long I tried to make my recipes on my website more like a cookbook with like a little head note. And, because you always hear people complaining about how they don't want to hear your life story, which is fine. I'm not trying to give a life story. I'm trying to give, just a quick blurb or how different substitutions, because people will say that they don't want this information, but then ask about a million substitutions, ask how they can make it dairy free, ask what they can do. And so I try to put that information in there now.
Yeah.
But at first, I was like, I'm just going to do it like a cookbook, and Google doesn't pick up on that. So
right.
You have to learn how to play the system.
Google is very, very catty when it comes to blogs. So, I mean, I remember it all is clicking for me now, because reading through, finding a recipe and reading through, I'm like, I don't care that you went to the farmer's market last week and you found this, and then, your aunt called and you guys hashed over a recipe. I'm like, oh my, just get to the recipe.
Right.
But in order for it to pop up when I do a search on, broccoli cheddar soup, it all depends on how you have laid out that recipe, if yours pops up first, right?
Yes. And I will say the kind of like story intro thing, that's a lot more of a thing of the past now. That doesn't have as much impact. And I don't tell stories like that as a full, thing for my recipe. I just try to give tips on maybe buying a certain ingredient, where you can find it, what you should be looking for, like tips on buying meat, things, and things that are more difficult to find, or ingredients that people might not be as familiar with. Mm-hmm. Explaining that, and then also giving those kind of like swaps and substitutions.
Gotcha.
For recipes. But I think the story thing is something that people really harp on, and I think it is more of that the early food blogging days that was big, but it's more phased out now.
Well, that's good to know, because there are some blogs and recipes that I still look at, and I'm just like scrolling past all of this stuff. But I have noticed now it's like there are substitutions listed in there, or it's like, hey, this happened to me, a quick note. Just be
troubleshooting.
Yeah.
And also there's also usually a jump to recipe button at the top. So if you don't want to do that, then you can use the jump to recipe. But then don't ask questions about things that are above.
Yeah. Don't bug me. Go back and read it. It's like,
no, I try to be really helpful to people. And if they have questions, I want to help them and make it work. Of
course.
But it is funny, the things that people ask.
It's like my stepdad when I was in high school, pre-calculus. I'm like, hey, can you help me with this? He's like, well, have you read the chapter before? And I'm like, no, of course I haven't. Just help me with it. But there's also restrictions or rules, I guess, on pictures and video too, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say as much restriction, but there's certain things that are encouraged, especially if you're trying to monetize your site and have ads. Then you want a certain number of things to show. And I think that also people are very visual. So I like trying to add step-by-step photos. Now, again, it's kind of transitioned to that, where now I try to have step-by-step photos for everything, because I do feel like people want that. Because that's something that I like too. I don't like just have the finished product of it looking really pretty. You want to see am I doing this right as I'm going through?
Yeah. Yeah, where you have this batter and you're like, this does not look right. This just can't be right. So then do you do pictures for the blog, I guess, on your website, and then you do video for Instagram?
And then I also do video for my website as well. Again, something that I've kind of transitioned to is trying to have a kind of how-to style video for most recipes. Again, because it's a good way to monetize. I have ads on my website, and ads run before the video, but also it's really helpful for people to see. Again, am I doing this right? Just if you're
Absolutely.
spending money on ingredients, you want to make sure that you're not messing it up.
Yeah, 100%. And or I guess let me ask you this. Do you think there is sort of this idea that food blogging is easy? That you're just throwing food in a food processor, you're worrying it about, and then just like, here you go, here it is.
Yes. I think a lot of that also has to do with just, again, the constant content creation, people consuming content so fast these days.
Yeah.
It doesn't last as long as it used to. And so I think that just, yeah, the sheer amount that people consume, they expect that they're going to see something all the time, and that it takes us 2 seconds to record it. And that, oh, there's no editing involved. It just happens to be really quick cuts and served to you really fast.
Yeah, we know better. We know better.
And also people's attention spans, like video content is no longer like, the full how-to. The cuts are quick. It has to be like under 30 seconds for TikTok and Reels, pretty much.
Yeah. It's like, can you make beef bourguignon in 30 seconds? Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a million food blogs out there. And, I was thinking about this because with my podcast, when I created it, I was like, I wanted to call it Just Another Effing Podcast, because it was like, right? I'm like, I'm just one in a bazillion. So how do you stand out? How do you make sure people are following you and going to your website? How is like cooking with cocktail rings? How do you make that stand out?
Yeah, it's definitely hard. It's a very saturated market. I will say, I think one thing now, I say that my niche is that I don't have a niche, because a lot of people have pigeonholed themselves into, vegan blogging, vegetarian, only a certain style of cooking, where I like to try different cuisines. I love to try different things. Some of my recipes are vegan, but they just happen to be that way because I think it tastes good and I was craving more veggies that day. I don't limit myself. It kind of comes with the recipes kind of come from whatever I'm craving and inspired by at the time.
Yeah.
And then again, the consistency and the relationship I have with my audience. I hope that as people make my recipes, they find that they're good and reliable and that they'll come back.
Yeah. I interviewed Sarah Moulton a while back last year, and her big thing with home cooks especially is that she always wanted to cater to home cooks because she just really felt like that's where her work translated. And it was just like, and the home cook, she goes, versus maybe a chef, you're doing it out of passion and out of love, and you're not making any money out of dinner, right? You're just doing it because you love it. And so I think a lot of your audience probably relates to that, is that you are a home cook.
And I try to go for quality as well, knowing that I've done my research on these things. I've been working in the industry for a while now, so I have some idea of what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
And have done these things kind of over and over, so that I can teach others. And kind of my tagline is, restaurant quality dishes that you can make at home.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I'm going to pull this up really quickly. You've been in my search for a month now. I apologize. It's like I'm a creepy stalker. I would say you know what you're doing. 236,000 followers on Instagram. That's just Instagram. So I feel like that does say a lot, right? I mean, when I'm looking for a recipe and I see yours pop up on my phone and I'm like, oh, she's got a lot of oh, okay, she's legit, right? I mean, that holds some weight.
I like to think it does. I've definitely worked very hard to grow my audience.
Yeah.
But I will say that it's not everything.
Yeah.
There are other people out there who, have built followings who maybe, I don't know, have kind of do throw things together.
Yeah, say it. Just go ahead, say it. This is a safe place. This is a safe place, Kylie.
But then there's also small accounts that I have found and followed that are incredible.
Yeah.
And, I want them to have huge audiences because they deserve it. And you can see it in their work.
I can see it in your work. Everything's so beautiful. It's just,
Thank you.
I'm a big fan of like well lit interviews and food. So I'm gonna ask you, do you like, is it a ring light? Do you have special lighting?
No, I shoot with all natural lighting.
What?
I am weather dependent. Yes, this is something that I probably need to transition to more like artificial lighting. But I just haven't because I live in a small Brooklyn apartment and don't have a studio that I can set up and leave up all
Sure.
the time. So I shoot using natural lighting. I love shooting when it's cloudy out and overcast because I just find that that gives the best look to dishes and so yep, it's a lot of weather dependent things. So I look at my weather app a lot and will try to plan things around that. And I have days where it all goes to shit. And it's sunny when I thought it was going to be cloudy, and I'm like, well, my day is ruined.
I'm impressed that it's all natural lighting.
I love the way it looks, and it's what I'm comfortable with. I know that I need to transition to more artificial just so that I can like do
Yeah.
more things. But yeah, it's hard to find the time to then teach myself that.
Go you.
And also to then put up and take down a whole lighting setup.
Yeah.
So maybe someday.
I feel you there. Oh, it's so annoying. And then as far as your camera, what do you use?
I use a Canon 5D Mark 5. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, a good one. A nice
Mark
camera.
4, Mark 4.
Yeah, awesome. Some of the stuff on your on Instagram, because that's where I follow you most, is I love the overhead shots of like the food processor.
Thank you.
So good.
I've got my ladder out. I've got, yeah, it's funny. I try to be better about sharing more behind the scenes stuff on my stories because some of it is just so funny. The setups that I'll have going. Today I was shooting TikToks in like very direct sunlight. And I only get that in my apartment hallway. So I was in my hallway with a cart, just looking for that natural, that harsh lighting. And yep, my neighbors probably think I'm crazy.
That's okay.
But I try to give them food, so
I was gonna
it
say
works out.
they're fine. Yeah, you're feeding them. They're fine. I would love to see some more behind the scenes. I would love to see you on a ladder, like shooting.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. As far as inspirations go, I think we kind of already touched on it a little bit, but it sounds like if you're craving something, that's what you're going to post.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of my recipes are dictated by that. And again, research, travel
Yeah.
definitely has a big impact. And eating at incredible restaurants. I'm very lucky to have been to some great restaurants and live in a place where there's so many incredible restaurants from all different cuisines. Like I love that you can travel just a couple subway stops and get to places like Jackson Heights that have Tibetan food and all different places around New York.
Incredible. Let's talk a little bit about the holidays because we're right in the thick of them. Any food traditions you or your family has?
Yeah, my family, it's funny. We're not traditional about a lot of things, but like we have the same things every Thanksgiving. We do the turkey, we do everything, and then on Christmas Eve we have baked stuffed shrimp, and
Yum.
then on Christmas Day we have roast beef tenderloin and these like au gratin potatoes that my mom makes. And it's funny because yeah, we stick with that every year.
Well, there's something to be said about it. We do spaghetti and meatballs on Christmas Eve, and
Love that.
right, and like this year I asked my husband, I'm like, do you want to do something different? Like we could do like cioppino or something. And I'm like, I don't wanna. I want to do spaghetti and meatballs or something about it.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
This year, we're not traveling for the holidays, just because getting a little more nervous to fly, and both of our families are on the West Coast. So we just saw them for Thanksgiving. So we're doing a more intimate Christmas, and it's nice because it'll be kind of like the last one, just the two of us. So we're gonna try to get some reservations that might be harder to get
Nice.
and get around the city, and then we haven't decided what we're going to do for our Christmas meal, but I don't know. We might have to scale it down. So
Yeah.
have to think about it.
What about New Year's Eve? Any sort of like fun traditions?
New Year's Eve, we don't have many traditions, but a couple of years ago, we had gone to my friend's beach house and we're there with some friends. And I love doing like a group cooking activity where we can bring everyone into it. And so we all made dumplings together, and that was really fun.
That sounds amazing. That's a lot of fun.
It was great. And then it's fun to teach people too. So it kind of felt like a little bit of like a cooking class, and making sure everyone's folding the dumplings right. And then you get to all eat your work together. So it's fun.
It always it always cracks me up with friends, especially showing them how to like cut an onion or something. And then they'll send me a picture later and they're like, so wait, this side or like this side? So it's fun.
I love that.
Yeah. It's fun to be the teacher occasionally.
It is. I have a friend, she will send me like whatever she has, a list of things she has in her fridge. And she's like, okay, what can I make from this? It's like my own personal version of Chopped.
Nice. That's impressive. I think that's actually impressive when I occasionally nail it, where you're just like, I only have these things, and you make dinner and it's like, oh, that was really good.
That happened to me the other night, and it's gonna turn into a recipe on my website.
Can I ask what it was?
Yeah. It was like it took me like 15 minutes to make this like broccoli cheddar mac and cheese kind of situation.
Ugh.
But we like snuck a bunch of like kind of like sneaky vegetables in, and it came together, and it was so quick and easy that I was like, okay, I feel like it would be good for people with kids, just like families. You can kind of build off of it or just serve that.
Yeah. I used to sneak in veggies in my kids. Like I did a twice baked potato and just load it with
potatoes,
cheese and butter, and you chop up the veggies super fine. He would eat the whole thing. Brilliant. It is a thing.
Smart.
It is a thing. Do you find that you often use the same like handful of ingredients?
There's definitely ingredients that I use frequently. I wouldn't say all the time.
Yeah.
But I would say there's like ones that definitely like are reoccurring in a lot of my recipes because I just love them. I mean, caramelized onions is one of them. I could put those on so many things. Gochujang, the Korean red pepper paste. Calabrian chilies is another one.
Yeah.
That kind of like all of those like good spicy flavors. Miso paste, I use in a lot of my recipes. Yeah.
What dishes have you found kind of go nuts with people, like your audience, that they just can't get enough of?
So I actually shared a recipe for, like spicy tuna crispy rice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I made a kind of pregnancy friendly version using a spicy shrimp salad instead of spicy tuna, because I think I love sushi so much. And it's recommended that you don't overdo it on sushi or you eat a lot of high mercury seafoods. Right. And so I had made this shrimp salad, and for some reason, it went viral on Instagram and TikTok. And it was great because, of course, people also, I mean, I put the recipe like, hey, you can get the recipe here in the caption, and everyone was commenting recipe. I'm like, okay, read the caption, but that's a separate issue. But so it directed a ton of traffic to my website, and it performed very well, and people have had a great response to it, and it's an easy one to make. And I've shared spicy tuna crispy rice before, but for some reason, one video can just blow up and then drive traffic to your website, and the kind of like cross promotion is great.
That is nuts to me.
It's wild.
The food blogger I was telling you about, she was mentioning a recipe she created like 3 years ago is just now popping up first on Google.
So interesting. It's really wild how things like that happen.
Yeah. So would you call that the dish of 2022 for you? Was that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely was, just because it was cool to go that viral. I've never experienced it to that level before. So that was definitely an interesting like career milestone. And
I'm sure too, it's validation, right?
It is. Yeah.
It's got to feel good that you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm onto something. That's amazing.
But then of course you try to create, you're like, okay, I've got this. I'll do a similar style video and, an interesting recipe. Falls flat.
Yeah.
Like, okay. So you never know what will go viral and what will not. And sometimes you just have to chalk it up to it being right place, right
I
time.
mean, you just have to keep going, right? Like you can't,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure. You did write a cookbook. You are a
I
cookbook
did.
author. It's
I
called
am.
Share and Savor. It's stunning, absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
The
Thank you.
photography,
I
was the
put a lot of
photography
work
you?
in. Hmm.
Incredible.
Yeah, that was definitely a really cool passion project. I love that as someone who creates things that are digital and, all my recipes are online, all of my videos are all online. To have a physical work product was really cool.
Yeah. Well, sure. Yeah. Something that you can like touch and
Yeah,
give to someone. You're like, looky what I did. Yeah, absolutely.
exactly.
We are going to wrap up and get to the final three, but I just want to mention to everybody, your website it's like an online cookbook, if you will. Your travel adventures are on there, but also you have a section called lifestyle where if I maybe missed something on Instagram, I can kind of go back and look. There's a holiday gift guide you've put on, cheap eats on a budget, no cook recipes for summer, 44 best chicken recipes. So that's just like a handful of things that are on that. So if you're not busy enough, right? You created all this other stuff on your website.
I try to make it easy for people to use as a reference. Just, if you're thinking you want chicken for dinner, then here you go. Here's 44 of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, no kidding. What is your favorite way to eat chicken?
It's so hard.
I know.
I mean, I love fried chicken.
So, same.
Delicious.
Same with
I was
ranch.
just in the South. Yeah. I was just in the South for Thanksgiving and I was driving back and my mom and I were like, I can't eat any more fried chicken.
Yeah, it's my family lives in South Carolina and one of my favorite things my uncle makes is chicken and rice with
Mm,
sausage, and the rice is just it's like not soupy, but it's like not dry whatsoever. It's just really, I'm going to say the M word, it's moist and delicious. And I asked him, as far as the chicken, because I'm wanting this recipe. He's like, you have to find a hen, not like a fryer. You have to find a hen because they're fattier. And that imparts all of this flavor into the stock and in your rice. And I could eat like 5 plates of chicken, and I just like
sounds
pig out.
amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. But then you come home and you're like, okay, no more chicken and rice. I can't do it.
Yeah.
It's
I will say there's also I make this coco van blanc. It's with
mm,
chicken thighs in like a creamy bacon onion mushroom sauce and I
stop,
just eat like a whole loaf of bread
stop,
dipping in the sauce too.
yum.
And it's like such a great winter cozy recipe and that's one that I make for dinner parties a lot. It's like easy to scale up, scale down. It's a fun one.
Right. Yeah. Well, I have a friend who eats a lot of chicken. So I'm already sending her to your website because she was asking me for a long time, I need some new chicken recipes. And I'm like, I don't know. So I'm sending her to you.
Perfect.
Yeah. 44. Here's 44.
Go wild.
Right. All right, Kylie, we are going to wrap up and get to the final three. My favorite
Okay.
part, best advice you've ever been given.
Ooh. Not comparing yourself to others. It's so hard. It's something that I constantly am working on. Um, there's a Teddy Roosevelt quote, comparison is the thief of joy. And I think it's very accurate. Again, it can be hard. You see other people having success, especially on the internet, especially on social media. Everything
Mhm.
looks perfect, everything looks curated. And you just gotta kind of put your head down and
Yeah.
not always, yeah, compare yourself to others.
My husband says that quote to me like on the daily because I
Yeah, my husband reminds me of it as well.
I struggle with that too. And I think
Hard.
when you're, the majority of your career is on social media,
Yeah.
we live and die by social media, right? I have a lot of friends who are like, oh, I'm never on social media. And I'm like, I can't not be on social media. It's my
Yeah.
job. Um, But I would tell my reporters that when I worked in TV, you can't look at what everybody else is doing around you. You have to put your blinders on and kind of stick to your own path and stick to what you do best. And I think that's huge. Like if you're going to compare yourself to others, then you're not going to be true to Kylie.
Yeah, and that's something that I learned really kind of earlier on, and that was a big kind of trial and error thing for me, and I think was a big turning point to where I found success was not trying to be like other people. And like because you don't really know what your look is going to be,
Yeah.
what kind of recipes you're going to put out there, and you're kind of first like finding yourself. So you're kind of imitating others. And then once I found my own voice and kind of followed that, that's where I think that I found success.
Brilliant. I love that. That's awesome. What's your happy place?
Ooh, my happy place. I have a couple.
Okay. Yay.
So, so one is in San Clemente. My uncle lives there, and that's what brought me out to California in the first place. And my husband and I would drive down, and it's just like so relaxing being by the beach, and I love it. When we were in college, like we would drive down and have weekends there. And then another one is Martha's Vineyard. I grew up going there in the summers, and I just absolutely love it. I love East Coast beach towns. And I kind of love the like haven that I've built in my own apartment. It's just so cozy, especially right now it's decorated for Christmas. And it's just like it's a small Brooklyn apartment, but it's like a nice place to come home to, and I love it.
Yeah. I'm a
What about you?
massive.
What's your happy place? I
Well,
love that question.
aw, yay. Probably I have a couple too. The Oregon coast.
Hmm.
It's like kind of mysterious and spooky and really cold, and I love cold weather. It's not an ocean. Well, SoCal. It's not an ocean that you're like, the water's so inviting. But yeah, it's just mysterious. It's very Goonies like, right? Like
Yeah.
it's perfect. And then South Carolina, just with family in South
Mm,
Carolina. It's always a good time.
I love that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's one of my favorite questions. What's your happy place? And it also is a state of mind too, right? Like in my
Yes.
kitchen is also a happy place for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
In all
Yeah, it's that place
things,
where you can like relax and everything
yes.
kind of like fades away.
Yeah. Well, I'm a homebody, so and my house is
I am
decorated
too.
for Christmas, and it's just yeah. There's no. We'll go out, like we'll go grab a beer in the afternoon or something, and I'm like, I'm ready to go home. I'm ready to go sit on the couch. Um,
Yeah, I know I'm like a mix. I like a balance of
Same.
being social and going out and exploring new things and then
Mhm.
coming back to my couch.
Yeah. Amen. Absolutely. In all things food and drink, what do you crave?
Sushi,
Yeah.
especially right now because I can't really have it. Um, and I mean, and like, yes, I can, especially because like it's very high quality fish here in New York,
Yeah.
but the anxieties that come along with it during pregnancy is tough for me. So yeah, sushi, really craving that. Drink again right now because I can't have it.
I
I would
know.
say a really good martini.
Ooh,
I love
okay.
a dirty gin martini. So those are my current cravings.
Okay. Well, just a matter of what, a few weeks.
Yeah, if you yeah, oh God.
Sorry.
I was about to say months, but
Sorry,
but
mom.
you're right.
Yeah. I mean, that little human's going to be here before you know it.
Yeah.
Well, and then I hope you can just gorge on sushi and not too many martinis, but enjoy a martini. Celebrate your kiddo.
Absolutely.
You have been a delight with a capital D.
Thank you so much for having me, Trish. This is
Aw,
so much fun.
good. And I'm so glad I stumbled across. Oh, holy crap. I totally forgot to ask you about cocktail rings. I know
Oh yeah.
I know the story, but tell me really quickly. Cocktail rings. This is a nod to family, right?
Yes. So my great grandmother had this incredible cocktail ring collection. And if you don't know, cocktail rings are kind of more like ostentatious rings
Mhm.
with gemstones that you would wear to a cocktail party. And my great grandfather, one of his passions, he was a doctor, but in his free time, he would collect these gemstones on his travels, and he would bring them back and have them made into rings and jewelry for her. And so I inherited that collection, and so I love wearing them. I have a lot of them, and it's a really cool nod to family.
That's so sweet. I didn't realize that your great grandfather would collect the gemstones and then make rings for her.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Really cool.
stop.
And a lot of them, like, they just like don't make them like that anymore.
No.
There's just like really cool designs. And then when I came out with my first cookbook, I actually had my own cocktail ring made. I have a friend who's a jeweler. She did my engagement ring and my wedding rings. And so she helped me create my own cocktail ring.
I love that story. I love a good grandma story anyways, but do you cook with the cocktail rings on?
No,
Okay.
because you really can't.
It's a pain in the
It's not good
ass.
for them. It's first of all, it's a pain in the ass. Second of all, it's not good for the stones.
No. Well, and if you're like me, I'm washing my hands probably a few dozen times when I'm cooking, depending on what I'm cooking. And so I was going to
Well,
ask
and you don't want them to like food to get stuck in there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I will say, I wear my wedding ring like all the time, and so that needs more cleaning than.
You're like, oh, there's is that ground beef? Oh, okay, gross.
That's where people get critical, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm eating the food. It's not you, so.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't work in a restaurant.
Yeah, it's going in my mouth.
Yeah.
Kylie Mazon-Chambers, you again have been an absolute delight. Really quickly, everybody, cookingwithcocktailrings.com is your website, and then the brand is so good. Cooking with Cocktail Rings on Instagram and TikTok, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So go check out her stuff. It's absolutely incredible and drool worthy and delicious. And I'm so glad again I stumbled across you. And I'm so glad we chatted for the last hour.
Me too.
You're a delight.
So nice.
Happy holidays to you. Congratulations.
You too.
On the new kid. Baby proof everything.
Thank you. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Kylie. So appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good one.
You've been listening to Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma with me, Trish Close. Today's episode sponsored by Tap and Vine 559, the place to eat, meet, and drink in Southern Oregon. You can watch this podcast and subscribe on my YouTube channel. Just search Hungry for More. You can also listen and subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts.